I had her in this morning. Dorothy's like, "Oh, here, you're going to need this." I'm like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, thinking, I was like, maybe she forgot to give one to Craig. I don't know. And then Kevin does the children's message, and it's like, I think he hacked into my email. But he gave the kids a what for, now I'm going to give you a what for. But remember what yesterday or last week's secret was? Hey, I didn't even remember that. So, yeah, we all know remember it was up there, ABC Cube, and we said it so much it kind of became like routine, I guess. I don't know, like, really? We got to say this again? So, but really, as I was thinking of it, as I was preparing this message, that it's really important. These first two secrets kind of go along, help us to be able to do the last three. So today, as you can see, secret number 2 is we got to go and grow. So just like Kevin told the young kids, you need to go to Sabbath school in order to grow. So, and I never, in the beginning, when Trish and I started going to church, that's all we did. We just went to church. There was a Sunday school, but there wasn't really encouragement to participate. So naturally I came across Christian radio, and you hear people preaching on different things, and you know you're learning stuff, and it's like exciting, but still really not quite growing. Well, then this guy that you guys probably all know, Dave Stahl, he's like, "You ought to come to church. You need to be fed." I'm like, really? So we actually came. It was actually December of 2007 when we were doing the, remember the Rick Warren thing and the, what the heck was that called again? Yeah, 40 Days of Purpose. So we started coming, and it was, but we just we just attended. We didn't go stay after a group. But I actually remember Ed Stahl's like, "You guys gonna stay and have class?" And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, no. That's kind of weird. So, but it was probably about 4 to 6 weeks into coming here, and I think we got on the list because we were like 6 weeks in a row, and Pastor Matt's like, "Oh, you get a star," you know. So, we started attending. We started belonging to a small group, and it was really kind of cool because I'm sure if you've attended any kind of group or Sabbath school or men's Bible study, that you hear other people's experiences, or they've studied this passage and they've had a different view, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I didn't see that," and the light bulb kind of goes off. Well, that has actually happened in the past when at a men's Bible study, which we haven't done that in a while, John. What's going on with that? Well, anyhow, Mr. Green, John Green, he talked on how his anger issues, and which John Green, anger issues, whenever you see him, he's smiling, you know, never really. But John, his anger, he got so mad at a cow that he decided that he was going to punch the cow. And he broke his hand. Now, for a farmer, they should know that the cow's skull is extremely hard, along with John's. So, yeah. But it was an encouragement to me because obviously all of us guys, we were going, and John was comfortable enough to share his struggle, which I have struggles with anger. And so it was an encouragement to me, and it just helped me to realize that, it's just not me that I have a problem with anger. And then my wife, at a Sabbath school class, learned from Pauline Morstead when she struggles with temptations that she says out loud. She says, I'm dead to that. And Pauline, she didn't even know it, but she's a theologian, It's like, hey, when Jesus died and we received Jesus, we died with Jesus, so our old nature's dead. So, yeah, we're dead to that. And then recently, I had to strong-arm this guy to let me use his name and, the whole story here. But Andrew, he's been coming to class, and he's been participating, and what he has learned in the class, he has had to apply at work, because he had this one situation where the person was really short and really hard to deal with, and Andrew, he kind of probably felt like giving her a what for, but he's just like, I'll take a break. All right, she's probably having a bad day, but from what he learned from in class, he applied out in the real world, which was an encouragement to me. I'm like, yeah, this is cool, So, and I'm sure everybody here has been in a group where you've experienced the same thing. And that's a whole part of attending and being part of a small group. So we're going to look at today's passage, and I don't know where it's at in the Bible. What's it say? It says page 268 of the Old Testament. It's 1 Kings 19, 19 through 21. So a little bit of context background. Elijah, he's around the time of Ahab, who was married to Jezebel. He just gets done defeating and slaying the 450 prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. And Jezebel says, if I don't do to you what you've done to my prophets, then it's not going to come to pass. And so Elijah got all scared and ran and had a pity party and says, God, I'm the only one that's left. And God finally says to him, listen, he says, there's 7,000 that haven't bowed the knee to Baal. So then he goes and tells this to them. He says, so Elijah departed from there and found Elisha the son of Shaphat, while he was plowing with 12 pairs of oxen before him, and he was with the 12th. And Elijah passed over him and threw his mantle on him. He left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, please let me kiss my father and my mother, then I will follow you. And he said to him, go back again, for what have I done to you? So he returned from following him and took the pair of oxen and sacrificed them and boiled their flesh with the implements of the oxen and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he arose and followed Elijah and ministered to him. So these two characters are probably the most crazy ones in the Old Testament. But this growth of Elisha, bear with me, sometimes I get Elisha and Elijah mixed up. This didn't happen overnight. I did a little bit of kind of peeling through the scriptures, and Elisha was with Elijah for a long time. Almost the whole entire reign of the king of Judah, Jehoshaphat. About 25 years. And so he was with Elijah all the time. And he, I'm sure, experienced all the different things that God did through Elijah, but he had a commitment. And he burnt his implements. So there was no turning back. Elisha didn't want to have any kind of temptation, which I think he was kind of a well-off to do person in his time. He had 12 pairs of oxen, but he burnt his implements so that there was no turning back. There was no like, oh, well, I'll try it a little bit, and you know, if it doesn't work out, I can go back. No, he burnt his livelihood, basically. So he was all in, 100%. So when we spend time with each other, just like in the men's Bible study, we feel more comfortable with sharing trials and temptations. And the other thing that is a problem when we do not go and belong to a group is our spiritual growth is going to be limited. It's going to be limited outside of ourselves. It's when we do not belong to a small group, you're not only robbing yourself of a blessing, you're robbing others of a blessing. Because when you come to a group, you're bringing your experiences, you're bringing your gifts that God has blessed you with. And so if one is not here or two is not there, then the group is lacking. Just like when Paul says, you know, there's people that have different gifts for ministering, different gifts for teaching. So you're not only robbing yourself, but you're robbing others of a blessing when you are not there in a group. And there's experiences that you have gone through that may be hard to talk about at first, but when you become part of a small group, God will give you the courage to talk about those experiences and use those experiences for His glory to help encourage other people that may be going through the same experience but haven't exposed. Now, there's probably some things that you may be thinking running through your mind, and I've actually thought of this because there's been times when, yeah, I might have stayed and attended class, but I really haven't been really necessarily participating. But there's things in our lives that I'm sure we all need to burn. There's things that are keeping us from really, as the old saying is, being sold out for Jesus. So, how many would like this church to be like the early church in Acts? They did some amazing things. And if we belonged, we went and, go to grow. You got to go to grow. If we went to a small group, we would be like a lot like the early church. And I'm going to read from Acts 2, and it's verses 42, and this is what it says. And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in the breaking of bread and in prayer. So they were steadfast. They were immovable. This was their focus. They were reading God's word. They were listening to the teachings of the apostles, which was Jesus' teaching because they had spent 3 years together with Jesus. And we can be just like the early church, and we can encourage one another, and we can support one another when we are in that small group. And that's, I guess, the one thing that has drawn myself to this church is we're a lot like a family. And when you're in that small group, you get to know people more and on more of an intimate level, and you get more comfortable. And when that happens, that equips us, strengthens us spiritually, but helps our faith. So when trials and temptations, which they will come, we'll be able to handle those situations, especially when we're in it together. Amen.